because we're here today to assist in solving some problems. And one of the problems is the misconception of what a driver's license is and what it's used for. The fraud of a driver's license is not in your interest. When they gave you that driver's license, it was to incorporate you as a corporate person, was not an instrument for identification. And you'll notice that all driver's licenses have the nomen written in all capital letters, which you all know, which indicates a corporation, an artificial person, an instrument. All right. Now that instrument comes under excise tax. And excise tax is a system that is set up for corporate activity and for taxing corporations in the capacity of having a privilege or benefit of operating in a corporate capacity, i.e. dealing with mercantile instruments or products of merchandise, sales, etc., and the movement of those things. Now, one thing that you must recognize, and I know you do recognize, are you that? Is anyone a movable instrument? Did somebody manufacture you? Are you a living, breathing being, thinking being? Well, what the driver's license does, it identifies or tags moving property. And you must understand that. And the reason I'm telling you these things, and the reason we're doing this particular lecture, is because if that's not addressed by the people on a serious matter, it will be used, as it has been used, to profile you, to extract revenues from you. And the fact that it expires proves what to you relative to identity? Does your identity expire? Can your identity expire? Well, why does your identity expire with the driver's license? Because it's not an identification card. It's a proof of contract information. It's a prima facie article, instrument used to regulate your economy. Do you understand? The license is based on that. It is to stagnate your flow. If you can stagnate the flow of a people, you can stagnate their economy. And if you can stagnate their economy, you can stagnate their life. If you stagnate their life, you control their family with just that instrument, and you stand back and just reap in the benefits. That's what the license is for. If you didn't know it now. You need to examine it for what it is. Now, anyone who has a license, pull out your pocket right now. Let's examine it. Now, look on the front of it. And it has a picture that represents you. Correct? And then it has some phonetic writing on the front that sounds like the name that you have. But that's not you. The picture can't represent you, and the name does not represent you. That name represents a private corporation, or what they call often a straw man, too. You notice that grammatically it's incorrect. What did you learn in 3rd grade grammar?
Capitalize your nouns.
You capitalize nouns, correct? If you don't capitalize a noun, then it must not be a noun, am I correct? But if all the letters are capitalized, it's not a proper noun, is it? It's grammatically incorrect if it's directed at a person, correct? Why do you think that was done? Do you think it's accidental? What occurs, you had that and you don't object?
You agree to it.
You agree, you waived, didn't you? And when you waive, you assume that that's you, don't you? And even when they write letters to you in response where they're suing you, and tickets are suits. If you didn't know that now. If you get a ticket on that instrument, it's a suit. They're suing you. And they're suing you for breach of contract. Are you aware of that? All right. And a summons is not a warrant. But there's treated accordingly, isn't it? Because it's chattel property. And then the license is used to transact any business you do with those instruments, so they can calculate, keep a database, and regulate how you're moving it, so they can deal with the resources. Do you understand? So the instrument is used as a database to check what you spend, where you go, what you have. And everything that you possess that's of any quality or any economic power, as far as a house or an instrument of transport like a vehicle, a conveyance, must be registered to the state. That is used in commerce. So it really isn't yours, but it gives the impression that it's yours. That's why they'll say registered to the state of New Jersey, because you never own it. It belongs to the state corporation. But they own it because they own you. You see how simple that is? And then, and I'm saying that so that you don't get caught up in the emotionalism of looking at the objects, but recognize it's actually your status that establishes that anything you own belongs to the state, including your children. And so the marriage license is another instrument that's used the same way, same with the birth certificate. The birth certificate is used so the corporation or the plantation claims the birth of the child. Like you get a certificate and it'll say, born in the state of New Jersey. Say, born in Camden, in the state of New Jersey. So that means the Camden Municipal Corporation gave you birth, being subject to the New Jersey State Corporation established in 1844, and that's your mother. And that's a certificate where the mother signs the child over to the hospital, who is in cahoots with the state under the Christian black codes, and they regulate, and they're like spies, they tell everything, and they operate together. Now you look back into the Christian black codes of 1724 and you'll see the absolute relationship between the hospital and the state. All right? So the offspring of the womb automatically belongs to the state, and so that you don't feel uncomfortable, instead of saying slave, they'll call it W-A-R-D, ward of the state. So the child being state property, that instrument or that birth certificate, being that's their property under commercial auspices, is transferred into a stock. So what they do, they borrow against it, project it on the tax that they expect to get from that thing during its life cycle. Because they're not citizens, they're property. They're property of the citizens. Whoever's name they bear, that's bonded. They're under liens and bonds from birth. So they're born in sin. And born in sin does not mean like, right and wrong. Born in sin means born in ignorance. Sin is ancient Hebrew. And when they translate, just like when they translate the Bible, they don't translate the culture. They translate European Romantic culture and interject Constantine's principles, when in actuality that means ignorance. Sin is ignorance or lack of knowledge. So you must understand this. It's not opinion, it's law. And by you not knowing this is how a lot of our people in the small communities are always taken advantage of, and they call it prejudice. But prejudice is put out there for you to divert the attention from what's really happening to you. So if they give you something to divert your energies makes an agreement ethereally with the atmosphere. And then all is well because you say it is, but it is not. And so that takes the karmic load off of him, and you accept it in a contract that you don't know is a contract. And you think that you're doing right. And when you violate, he tells you broke the law. And you don't even know it has nothing to do with law whatsoever. The contract makes the law. Are you clear? Are you following me? I don't want to get past anyone, because it's very important that you understand these concepts. And you understand these concepts that I'm telling you for correction are ancient. They're ancient principles of civilization from the great law of the great peace, from which the Constitution that governs this land in this day was adopted from. You may assume it is the matter that may be before the court, when actually it's the person that's before the court, the status of the person. Therefore, law does not apply to the person. And since the judge is an officer of the court, and a member of the barrister, that's where Bar Association comes from, barristers, England, Barristers Association of England, with branches here in the Americas to take care of their investments. And then the prosecutor is an officer of the court, member of the Barristers Association of England, with a branch here in North America. and the PD, as well as the attorney or the lawyer that they put on you that you pay is a spy and a member of the Barristers Association of England with branches here in North America and an officer of the court. Now, does it take a child to recognize that that's a conflict of interest? But yet we roll through that every day, and they build up so much financial energy that they can't even count it. And you actually start thinking that you've done something wrong, and actually they're regulating you just like any commercial product. But your concept would be that these people are operating constitutional because they have titles of government. They're, mayors, deputy mayors, sheriffs, etc. The only true law that's riding around here to execute law is the sheriff. And the policemen are actually private security guards. They're not officers. And many of them don't know that. And so they're trained to actually abuse their own people. They're used as instruments so that if somebody pops up that really knows something about law and sues them, the cities will usually try to put it on that officer. Yeah, that's why they use them as buffers. They use them, which is really unjust. But on Title 18, whether someone operating in what you would call an official capacity abuses or violates the people's rights, they're held under color of law, irregardless of whether they know it or not. And anyone that comes to any of the people that claims any authority, that claims to extract an emolument from you, or to take your time, or to hinder your movement, or to command any specific performance from you without a Fourth Amendment warrant signed by a federal judge, are violating you right then. So even when they stop you on the street, they've already violated the law, but they already know they're not operating under law. They're operating on a limited jurisdiction of a corporate capacity as private security guards for extracting revenues as highwaymen from people who are not protected by constitutions. That's really what's happening. And so once you understand that, you must, and I trust that you will be inspired to correct your status in order to start fixing this thing, because outside of your rightful person, if you're not in your proper person, believe me, the law doesn't protect you. We're here to start putting some brakes on it and start being more useful and more productive citizens in our communities. But you cannot be empowered with emotionalism or just coming together and having a rally. You can be empowered if you have knowledge, though. You can be empowered if you know what's up. If you know how things run, you can fix things. If you deal with emotions, you fix nothing. You just get ulcers and headaches, and then make the pharmaceutical companies richer. Am I right or wrong? So you want to look at status, and write this down. There's 3 principles: status, jurisdiction and venue/venue, and adjudication. I want you to start looking at these things so that when they start screwing your family members and screwing your people, don't start talking racism. Start costing them, because they're robbers. And just because somebody has a government office in the white collar, don't assume that they're omnipotent. And don't think that they're godly. Some of the biggest criminals on this planet got white collars that turn around backwards, calling themselves preachers, and the others calling themselves politicians. And it's the truth. Don't get angry at them. They're just ordinary people just like me and you. But make no mistake and start thinking that because they be talking law, saying law, that they're moral, because they are not. The biggest thieves are there. Most of them are useless cumberers of society that are absolute leeches. They produce nothing. That's why they get those types of jobs, to suck off of you. And so once you understand how these things take place, you can start countering them. And you can't counter them with anger. You can't counter them with emotion. You must counter them with knowledge.